And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another weekly review with The Robot, brought to you by the Movie Pope. And here he is, bolts and nuts akimbo, The Robot.
I speak for everyone here at the podcast when I say we all love a good sword and dagger story, especially one with compelling characters and a lot of fight scenes. And there is no better example of the cloak and dagger than Alexander Dumas' The Three Musketeers. Ever since its publication in 1844, it has enjoyed numerous adaptations. Seriously, this book was meant to be adapted on the big screen. And while there are plenty of examples, the one I'm looking at today is the French version from 2023. Admittedly, I didn't even know this existed until a few months ago, but I am hooked now. Unlike previous iterations where they've tried to compress an entire book into one film where, in the process, some elements get altered or dropped, they decided to split it into the films. Not a bad move, and it gives us ample time to absorb what's going on. And since it's in French, unless you're a know-it-all like Luca, we're gonna need subtitles to follow along. But the dialogue itself doesn't need much translation when you can follow along with the action. The only recognizable name here is Eva Green, and if you followed us for a bit, you'll know she is the movie Pope's muse. So, without further ado, let's take a stab at the Three Musketeers, Part 1, D'Artagnan. Right off the bat, the tone of this movie is nothing like the Disney version. These guys aren't afraid to crack a few skulls and, if I'm being honest, they don't mind getting their hands and faces dirty and doing the job. I did get Zack Snyder vibes as I was watching this, but I gotta hand it to the filmmakers. They weren't trying to make anything clear-cut and sanitized. This is a world where everything is lived in, every dirt, scrape, and scar has earned its place. Eva Green does a phenomenal job at playing the Lady de Winter, this menacing agent of the Cardinal whose agenda is all for France. Well, at least that's what we're led to believe. You can tell this woman is loving her work a little too much. Rebecca de Mornay may have given us a pretty villain, but Eva gives us one we can all hate. There aren't any bright colors, either, no pastels or sunlight. It is all muted earth tones, and natural. You're meant to be immersed in the world of 17th century France. It's not meant to be elegant, but it's supposed to be real. That's one of the ways to tell a story, is to let us see that this is as real and tangible as our own. In previous iterations, you get the sense there is some conflict going on, but they always present it as a quarrel between the king and the cardinal. For us rubes, that's all good. But in the wider historical context, we forget that France, and Europe, for that matter, was embroiled in a series of religious wars between Catholics and Protestants. The movie even kicks off with an intro that lets us know the king is trying his hardest to bring the Protestants to heel, but he's having a pretty rough go at it. With that taken into account, it adds a sense of dread and urgency, because this isn't just a country dealing with the usual economic crisis. This is a land that has been torn apart by civil war and, after a tenuous peace led by a weak-willed monarch, it is pretty close to falling back. This is a kingdom where danger is everywhere and all it needs is a spark. Oh, and let's not forget that in Germany the war between Catholics and Protestants has been raging for 9 years. So not only are the French dealing with their own troubles, but foreign quarrels could very well end up on their doorstep. All of a sudden, the King's Musketeers aren't just a bunch of flashy swordsmen honing their skills, but they're preparing for the eventuality of war. Give it another 8 years, and Cardinal Richelieu is going to send these men into Germany to fight against the Holy Roman Empire. Those musketeers are gonna need all the practice they can get. Queen Anne is pretty much the ornament to Louis XIII, but little does he know she's getting it on with the enemy. The Duke of Buckingham, an Englishman and a Protestant to boot. Meanwhile, D'Artagnan befriends and falls for a maid named Constance, who, by degrees, falls for him in spite of his propensity for getting into scrapes every 5 minutes. It's interesting to see these two love stories run parallel to one another. As much as they seem like worlds apart, they both meet a tragic end. Of course, the Queen gets off light compared to poor Constance, but both romances were not meant to meet happy endings. Cardinal Richelieu seems hell-bent to expose the Queen for her dalliance, going so far as to send Lady de Winter to England to fetch the tokens of her affection to Buckingham, which sets D'Artagnan and Athos on their quest to stop it and save her honor. Oh, and shall we forget that Athos has a strange connection to the Lady de Winter. Apparently, falling in love is as ill-advised, ill-fated, and dangerous as being a spy, Protestant, or rebel. This version of the Three Musketeers is, by far, the most interesting. The original book gave us a sense of danger at every corner, that anyone and anything could be friend or foe. No shade against the other versions, but they just felt safe. It was like going through Epcot and seeing all the different countries of the world and learning of their culture. Okay, sure. But here, you're with the characters, your head being on a swivel as you try to navigate the world of court intrigue, espionage, and pending warfare. Even the main characters don't get off lightly. Athos is very much close to meeting his maker when his brother launches a surprise rescue, and even then he isn't feeling comfortable. Even the people at the top, such as the king and his queen, are targets, and trust is pretty hard to come by and very difficult to give. In my book, at least, this movie gives us a world where it lives up to the swashbuckling genre and then some. I think the only other iteration that comes close was the show Musketeers, but even then it seems tame compared to these two films. The Musketeers are definitely the heroes here, but that doesn't mean they'll come out on top. That is what makes it so compelling. Thanks for watching, and if you don't mind, please leave us a like. It helps a lot. And while you're at it, subscribe so you never miss an episode drop. This is the Robot signing off.